Alright, you guys, so to get this deck profile started off with, I am playing 3 copies of Deadliest Beast Deity Ethics Buster Reverse. Now, I am aware that normally in most decks you want to max out your boss unit, but because of how Beast Deities work, it's actually very interesting to only have this at 3. I've realized from my personal experience playing this deck that once you go into this after you've placed your Ethics Buster first, you're not going to really keep rewriting into this. It's not something you naturally do. You'd rather drop the pieces onto the board to set up for this effect to get your multiple attacks, as well as use the ability of this card, you know, maybe once to finish the game off, or to have this be your win con piece. So because this is a searchable win con piece that we can find very easy on top of all the drawing effects that we have as well and searching, I figured only playing 3 of this was fine. This way I can make space for other beat stick and other key pieces needed for the deck to work. But I will admit that the fact that this card's still giving you about 8 attacks in a turn, as well as the additional Vanguard attacks, and the threat of a lot of the on-hit pressure effects given from the Beast Deities, makes this deck very scary. And I will admit that I underestimate its potential in terms of all the combo plays that it can actually do. However, it is still a setup deck that is very linear in terms of its game plan, at least from my experience, and that's why I just dropped Reverse down to 3. And now for the MVP of the deck, truly one of the best supporting cards. We have 4 copies of Beast Deity Ethics Buster. Now, originally I thought Ethics Buster was garbage. I was one of the few people that thought it. I was like, discard 2, very expensive effect. Yeah, you get to do the main phase shenanigans. However, because of the other stuff that Beast Deities have, it actually works out extremely well. Being able to force your opponent into a situation where they have to determine, do they want you to get the restand with another Vanguard attack, or do they want to leave you at rest, means that either way they're taking a damage and they have to deal with the fact that you're going to restand this anyway via either card effects, or they have to drop a lot of cards in their hand to stop this attack, so then you have to expel more resources to get this card back standing up, as well as the effect of your other Beast Deities that you might have for that turn to do more attacks during the main phase. Beast Deities actually are very good at the mind game because of how some of them work, since they all have the same clause of when they attack during the main phase, if they hit, they do something. If they don't hit, they get to restand. So therefore, they always know that at least your opponent always knows that they have another attack coming their way, depending on what they choose to block. And with Ethics Buster combined with Deadliest Beast Deity Ethics Buster Reverse, the additional effect given to this when wrote upon by this card means that this is how you get your extra Vanguard swings and applies more pressure onto this, and you consistently get the value of this card in 2 turns. The additional setup with the XL2 markers going into this prior to your win condition makes it to where that in this deck you're essentially still doing the Hell's Infinity combo from like the Limit Break era days, where you're still getting about, I believe, 7-8 attacks, at least from my experience, about 7-8 attacks, because of the restanding as well as the other various effects that Beast Deities have to continue on your combo plays. The second skill, I will admit though, is one that you're not going to use very much. You're only going to be dealing with the first ability. The deck is a little bit tight on resources because we don't have many resource management cards for a Nova Grappler deck to actually bounce back all of the resource that we're using. So just be cautious of your resource management when playing this. For my next grade 3, I am playing 2 copies of Ultra Beast Deity Alumino Dragon. Now, I play Alumino Dragon for 2 reasons. The first reason is the fact that outside of Deadliest Beast Deity Ethics Buster Reverse, for whatever reason we never get this card and we want to go into something else that can help us win the game, this is actually not a bad option whatsoever. Although I've never had to ride it, this card can also still give you about 6 to 7 attacks, theoretically speaking, combined with this card, and you don't have to worry about losing out on your rear guards. So as a Vanguard, it's still really strong. You have both effects available to you to decrease its power as well, up to 27,000, which is a magic number against other XL and Protect decks. Another reason being is the fact that And then the second reason being is that this is one of the very few beatstick pieces that Beast Deities actually have. From my experience with Beast Deities, we don't have a lot of cards that actually get a huge amount of power to themselves. Like, yes, they give you extra attacks and they call you out and improve your consistency and resource management, but a lot of the Beast Deities don't get an extra like power bonus. Outside of Excel 2 and triggers and their own abilities for a few of them, you need something that actually can like hit your opponent really hard. Otherwise, you're just playing a game with a bunch of pokes and you're just hoping they don't pull more than 2 defensives to stop you. Because this deck really does get cucked by defensives if you're not pressuring hard in the early game to where they have less chance of seeing more triggers. Moving on to grade 2s, I am playing for a copy of Beast Deity Eclair Dragon. Now, Beast Deity Eclair Dragon was actually a recommended piece to me. I was reviewing Japanese lists when I was building this deck and playtesting experiment with it. And originally I was playing Black Tortoise because I said to myself, the difference between this card and Black Tortoise is that Black Tortoise is always available to me if it's on the board, and this card is simply on place. And it does cost you to discard a card from your hand, which is something I did not like doing. I'd rather just play the Soul Blast because outside of my Vanguard, Ethics Buster, and 2 other cards, Soul wasn't really something I was concerned about. If anything, I was going to play Soul Charging pieces to mitigate the issue versus discarding from my hand. But with the other Beast Deity support I was looking at on top of this, it's not that big a deal. Eclair giving you another main phase attack as well as acquiring more power that he gets to keep until the end of the turn means that combined with XL2 and other effects of our cards, this card becomes a magic number on its own, and it's another one of those mind game pieces that your opponent has to choose on if they want this to restand or if they're just going to take it. Regardless, you're forcing a card out of their hand or they're taking damage, which again sets up for your later game attacks, so that this way the power benefit of your cards won't matter as much because they'll have less chance of seeing defensive triggers. And for my next grade 2 and the MVP of Beast Deities, we have 4 copies of Beast Deity Brainy Papio. Now, Brainy Papio is incredible. This is actually one of the best resource pieces we actually have for Beast Deities. Because a lot of our Beast Deity effects force us to discard cards from our hand, such as Eclair and Ethics Buster, this card converts itself into a body on board, so that this way you're not actually minusing all the time from discarding from your hand compared to most Nova Grappler decks. And because Brainy Papio has a very powerful Vanguard / Rearguard skill, having this card be on the board until next turn or until you can at least restand it with other card effects means that you're going to have a really strong attacker to go into for your Vanguard or Rearguard turns, depending on which one you're on or if this becomes your main Vanguard. It also gives you the additional draw and extra attacks, and as well as the on-head effect, which means that, again, this is another card that mind games your opponent in choosing if they have to block or not, forcing more cards to their hand or giving you an extra attack in terms of refunding back the effect of Brainy Papio's skill, meaning that this card is just, it's so good. The benefit is incredible. And for my final grade 2, I am playing 4 copies of Beast Deity Typhoon Bird. I'm actually really happy that Nova Grapplers got some form of superior calling and we're starting to see more of it. Besides Brainy Papio as well as Typhoon Bird, this card being able to continuously let you search your deck out for Beast Deity pieces that are non-grade 2, so unfortunately you can't search out these, but you can get the grade 3s as well as the grade 1, means that we are able to search out this card for extra attacks, extra pieces for Ethics Buster. We can also search out some of our key grade 1 pieces that actually do play a huge role in this deck. It's a really good setup piece that helps us start setting up the board. By the time we go into Ethics Buster Reverse, we'll have all the pieces that we need on the board to activate his effect at full power, as well as mitigate any sort of resource management issues we have later, so we can serve cards in our hand for discarding effects such as Brainy Papio, or for any other ability that's going to need more than one card to be discarded with. Moving on to my grade 1s, I am playing 4 copies of Beast Deity Max Beat. Now, max speed is interesting because I've seen a lot of Beast Deity decks from what I've been doing my research on. They don't actually play this. They play the grade 3 Searcher, which is the Arashid, or they play draw and resource management pieces. However, the reason why I like max speed so far is for two reasons. One, it's because it's a top 3 search for any piece that's grade 2 or higher. So all this becomes accessible to you besides the grade 3s compared to the Arashid, as well as the fact that this is a Beast Deity grade 1, meaning that it's searchable off a Typhoon Bird. So this is another body you can get onto the board. The effect also works on Vanguard when it's placed. That means that this card essentially refunds itself if you were to search and add a piece to your hand, which again is extremely plausible because this deck is going to be primarily Beast Deities outside of the triggers, meaning that at any period in the game that we see this card, the fact that the other pieces that we have in the deck let us restand our units during the main phase, this never minuses. It refunds itself back. It's a neutral gain, and I think the fact that it's searchable off a Typhoon Bird means that you're essentially playing like 8 copies of this card to search out for other key pieces that you might need. In this deck, it's very linear in terms of strategy, so making sure you get the Ethics Buster prior to going to grade 3 is a big deal. Searching out the Brainy Papio if you're sitting with the Eclair is a big deal. Like getting your Typhoon Bird to go into your ride target if need be is a big deal, as well as getting your beat 6 Alumino Dragon. There's no reason why I don't think this card is good in any scenario, and besides the resting itself, it doesn't matter because the deck will restand. If anything, I might do a 2-2 split. I might play like 2 of max speed and then 2 of the Arashid because you want to search out like a grade 3 or it gives you extra searching as well as a body on board that can restand and gain power. That is a route you can go, and that does make more sense to me. However, so far, I've been primarily enjoying just playing pure Beast Deities. For my next grade 1, I am playing 4 copies of Beast Deity Lift Tauros. Now, Lift Tauros is another searching piece that we have for grade 1s. This one primarily searches your deck for a grade 3 if you were to add it to your hand when your Vanguard attack hits, and it moves itself into the soul. So it gives you soul charging for cards like your Brainy Papio, as well as other targets for your next grade 1 that I'm going to showcase, which is a plus. On top of that, this card is also another card that you can use that can call itself onto the rear guard circle and restand one of your units. So because it lets you stand one of your units that are Beast Deity outside of, cards like Typhoon Bird and using the effective cards that, place self to rest, this is one of the key pieces that you'll use to restand your Ethics Buster if it fails, or just any rear guard you have or unit with Beast Deity in its name that fails in terms of attack. Giving you souls, searching out a grade 3 Beast Deity piece is actually really important, as well as the fact that it's a really good Vanguard target to ride into. And for the last grade 1 of Beast Deities, the OG that has been with us since like forever, 4 copies of Beast Deity Scarlet Bird. Now, Scarlet Bird is probably the most important piece in this deck. You are going to use this to essentially restand your entire board after you get done using all of the effects of your Beast Deities prior to battle phase. It restands your Vanguards. If you fail with Ethics Buster, it gets the Papios back up, the Eclairs. Whatever you've put to rest or call with your other card effects, this card's going to give your entire board back, as well as the fact that because you're playing White Tiger, and which you're never going to Soul Blast out of the Soul, you get to convert this card back into a draw. So it's a lot of neutral gaining in this deck. You get some sort of advantage by replacing a lot of the cards that you're calling out via their own card effects. However, it works out really well because all the effects they do means that your pressure is coming from the main phase but prior to the battle phase, so you're essentially getting about 6 to 8 attacks in this deck that you can convert into some sort of resource such as drawing or searching, which means that you increase your chances of seeing triggers. You're getting back the hand that you've lost out from calling and attacking and blocking, and it all works out extremely consistently. You have to play 4 of this. I have not seen a single Beast Deity deck besides myself or any others that play less than 4. Again, it resets your board, it sets you up for the battle phase, and it converts itself into a card draw, which in Nova Grapplers is fantastic. Now, moving on to zeros and triggers, I am playing 1 copy of Beast Deity White Tiger. It's mandatory if you want to get the draw off of Scarlet Bird. You have to play it. Trigger-wise, I think this deck is very linear. I am playing 8 critical with 4 red lightning, 4 shining lady. I'm playing 4 draw PGs with a twin blader. And unlike most of my other V decks, in this one I am playing 4 copies of the grade 3 heal guardian. Because I'm not playing Arashi to actually search this card out, I have to draw into it, or I have to see it via, trigger checking or just drawing into it any type of way, because it's not searchable in this deck because it's not a Beast Deity. But because this is a setup deck, it's more important to actually have more of these. You want to make sure that you don't take a lot of damage in the early game. You just get the counterblast you need to get off the effects you have prior to going to your grade 3 Vanguard turn. If you then take a beating after you play on Ethics Buster, you then go into this hoping that you can win the game with all the setup that you have. So yeah, playing 4 of these actually does matter. You also need 4 of these because you need to draw. And I have been debating on if I want to do like a 5 crit 3 front and then leave this like this, simply for the fact that, again, none of these units actually gain any sort of power outside of Alumino and Eclair. And then yes, Brainy Papio can theoretically, if it hits, call something, give it 10k, but it has to hit, and if it doesn't hit, you don't get the benefit off of it. So outside of these 2 cards gaining themselves any sort of power, and Excel 2 being your primarily Excel marker, your numbers just aren't that good. So I genuinely do think that maybe doing like a rainbow or a 5-3 split with fronts isn't bad. Your Vanguard is still swinging multiple times, but at least with the front triggers, prior to going into Deadliest, Beast Deity, Ethics Buster Reverse, will make your Ethics Buster turn not suck. I just think that most people don't play fronts because this will eat your entire front row, so therefore crits just seem better. However, that's just my opinion on it, but guys, this is my current take on Beast Deities right now in the current format of V Premium. I will say, I think this is a very fun deck. It does feel like it needs just one more solid power boost before it gets up there with the other decks, and it is a little piece reliant, but thanks to all the searching and drawing that we have in this deck, finding pieces isn't hard. It's just a little bit more steps you have to take to make sure you have your perfect setup. Control matchups suck for this deck, but every deck has to have weakness, right? Now, with that being said, card fighters, thank you so much for staying tuned throughout the entirety of this deck profile. I have a bunch of other V Premium deck profiles coming out as I've been having a little bit more fun with V than I have been standard for a minute. So yeah, definitely stay tuned for that. But with that being said, I'll catch you later. Peace.